Hi, everyone. Last night, a devastating rocket attack out of Lebanon into northern Israel killed at least 12 children and teens and injured dozens. Now, international headlines seem to be intentionally unclear about what happened. So this post is going to address what happened, who's responsible, who Hezbollah is, the role that Iran plays in all of this, why the Golan Heights are considered occupied by Israel, and why that even matters in the context of this attack. So please stick with me through this post. It's important, and share it if you can. Let's start with the basics. What happened? At least 12 children and teens were killed and over 30 were injured when a rocket launched from southern Lebanon hit a soccer field and playground in the northern Israeli Druze town of Majdal Shams. Now, this was the single deadliest attack on northern Israel since the Hezbollah terror group started launching rockets into Israel on a near daily basis on October 8th, just a day after Hamas violently infiltrated and massacred southern Israeli communities. Now, yesterday saw Hezbollah fire dozens of rockets into northern Israel, and before reports of this strike's impact actually emerged, Hezbollah initially claimed responsibility for launching 4 other attacks that very same day, along with a barrage of Katyusha rockets and also a single heavy Falak rocket at a military base just about 2 miles from the soccer field that was hit. Now, as news came out about the heavy rocket hitting the Druze town, Hezbollah then walked back its claims for responsibility, issuing a statement that claimed that the terror group had absolutely nothing to do with the incident. Well, the IDF says that after investigating, the rocket that hit the soccer field where the murdered kids were playing was actually manufactured in Iran. It's only held by the Hezbollah group. It's a heavy Falak 1 model bomb, which contains an explosive warhead of around 110 pounds. Now, the rocket was launched at Majdal Shams from the southern Lebanese town of Sheba, and the IDF says that they've identified the shooter as Hezbollah operative Ali Mohammed Yahya, who's a commander in the area of the village from where that rocket was fired. Now, before I get to how Israel is planning to actually respond and has responded so far, let's actually talk about Hezbollah and who this terror group is. Hezbollah is a Shiite Muslim political party and militant group that wields significant power in Lebanon. It's one of the most heavily armed non-state military forces in the world. It's funded and equipped by Iran, and it has an estimated 150,000 rockets and missiles. Now, Hezbollah was founded in the 1980s during the Lebanese Civil War when Israeli forces invaded southern Lebanon to expel Palestinian guerrilla fighters that were using bordering Lebanon to attack Israel. A group of Shiites who were inspired by Iran took up arms against Israel, and that is when Iran and its Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps saw an opportunity to gain a foothold in Lebanon. They started providing funding and training to this budding militia, which ended up adopting the name Hezbollah, that means the Party of God. And Hezbollah became a vital asset to Iran, which has been establishing proxies throughout the Middle East as part of its larger goal to implement an Islamic caliphate and Sharia law across the Middle East, Israel, and also throughout the West. Now, since Hezbollah's establishment, it has been attacking Israel, sparking numerous wars and clashes. And since October 8th, like I mentioned before, Hezbollah has been firing rockets into Israel on a near daily basis in what it claims is a show of support for Gaza. But really, the terror organization is just using this war as an excuse to continue its war to enforce Sharia law across the region through imperialist force. Now, international headlines keep on referring to the attack on Israel specifically as an attack on the Israel-occupied Golan Heights. So let's break that down. Israel captured the Golan Heights from Syria during the 1967 Six-Day War, which is otherwise known as the Third Arab-Israeli War. And that is when a coalition of Arab nations and their armies attacked Israel simultaneously in an attempt to take over control of the country. Now, Syria was one of those countries which had also attacked Israel in prior wars, and Israeli forces fought back and captured the Golan Heights from Syria. This was viewed as essential for Israeli security since Syrian artillery regularly shelled northern Israel when Syria controlled the heights. And also, the Golan is a large strategic plateau that overlooks most of northern Israel. Well, Syria attempted to regain control of the heights following the war to no avail, and finally in 1981, Israel decided to annex the Golan Heights despite international protest. Now, in 2007, Israel said that it was willing to trade land for peace with Syria if Syrian President Bashar al-Assad were to cut ties with Iran and other hostile guerrilla groups, but nothing ended up coming of those talks. Now, it is important to note that throughout this time, Iran and Syria were becoming closer and closer, also thanks to Syria's strategic border with Israel. And when civil war broke out in 2011 in Syria, the Islamic Republic of Iran propped up the Syrian president, Bashar al-Assad, and his regime to prevent control of Syria falling into the hands of rebel groups. Now, since then, Iran has helped support the Syrian army through heavy financing and also by deploying large numbers of Shiite foreign fighters from its proxy groups to assist the fighting, like Hezbollah in Lebanon as an example. And Iran has continued to use Syrian territory to transfer weapons to Hezbollah and also other terror proxies who are threatening Israel's border. So Syria is yet another border that Israel has that is being influenced by the Islamic Republic of Iran. Now, international news outlets have also suggested that the Druze community of Majdal Shams is more loyal to Syria than it is to Israel. So let's talk about the Druze community in Israel as a whole. The Druze are an ethno-religious minority. Most Druze live in northern Israel, in Lebanon, in Jordan, and in Syria. Here in Israel, there are about 150,000 Druze today. They have full citizenship rights. They make up about 1.5% of the population. Most Druze actually serve in the Israeli army. In fact, they're the largest non-Jewish group in the IDF, and they proudly take on top leadership positions in the military. Now, Druze living in the Golan were offered Israeli citizenship when the region was annexed from Syria in 1981, but not everyone accepted. Druze in the Golan can still study and work in Israel, but only those who have citizenship can actually vote. So in recent years, there's been a growing number of Druze who initially did not become Israeli citizens who have now chosen to become Israeli citizens. And Majdal Shams is made up of about 12,000 Druze. It's known for having a mixed population with many Syrian loyalists, but also Israeli citizens as well. Now, for the Israeli government, this doesn't matter. The attack on Majdal Shams is considered an attack on Israel, and it's going to be dealt with as such. So the question now is, how are Israeli leaders actually vowing to respond? Early this morning, the IDF said that it had conducted airstrikes against 7 Hezbollah targets deep inside Lebanese territory, but it says that there will be a larger response than this. The Israeli Army Chief of Staff says that the rocket attack will lead to a very significant reaction. The Israeli Prime Minister is also vowing that Israel will not remain silent, and he's going to be convening the Security Cabinet upon his return to Israel from the U.S. He's currently on his way home as we speak. So the question now is, will this lead to an all-out war between Israel and Hezbollah? And that is hard to know. Since October 8th, 24 Israeli civilians have been killed in the fighting by Hezbollah rocket fire, along with 18 soldiers and reservists. And Hezbollah has named 381 members who have been killed by Israel during the ongoing skirmishes, mostly in Lebanon, but also some in Syria. So the question now is how far both sides are actually willing to go as Israel continues its war against Hamas in Gaza and also deals with multiple other fronts of violence that are emanating from its borders.